Hello, everybody. It is your Professor Rocco, you boy, coming at you with another Age of Sigmar 101 video and a Rocco responds. This could probably count as a master class because it's like going in depth on an army, but I don't know yet. It'll probably be a 101, but we will be talking about Stormcast, and you are seeing my avatar that's normally like my watermark on my videos. Be where my face normally is when we do these, screen captures, because I didn't have that good of a day today, actually. Honestly, I wasn't even going to make a video this week because I was going through some stuff, but there was a viewer question at the 11th hour that was something that I can answer. And the viewer question in particular for this Rocco responds was by Blood Clot Plots saying, first off, great video. Thank you. And then their question specifically is deployment and strats for a non-Alpha Strike Battle Regiment Stormcast Eternal list, something like Gardas and Hallowed Knights, or big body count Stormcast list. They've played Dragons a bunch. It's been great, but it gets a little stale. You've got the one player style. If you got an alpha, pin your opponent in their deployment zone, shoot them with mortal wounds, and that's it. So their question was, what's another list? What's another thing? And conveniently, I do play Hallowed Knights in Stormkeep, and one of my lists that's a little more for fun, but you can see this around Doing Good, is a Vindictor spam list, and this is my take on that, which is up on screen right now. So I'm doubly a Hallowed Knight list and a Stormkeep list. So let's start with what Stormkeep means. It's that I get Cities of Sigmar units. One in every 4 unit of my army in Stormcast gets to be a Cities of Sigmar unit. It doesn't get the Stormcast keyword, like how when Stormcast units go into cities armies, they get all the keywords. They do not here, not in this instance. So like Gardas has an ability to give out a 5-up ward save. The Rune Lord won't get it. The Anointed wouldn't get it anyway because he has his own ward save, and we've got some stuff going in here, but that's okay. So you take things from cities for other reasons. We also get the Shield of Civilization rule, where in the first and second battle rounds, if a friendly Stormkeep Redeemer unit is contesting an objective that is partially or wholly within your own territory, each model in that unit counts as 3 for the purposes of contesting that objective. Fantastic. We are filled with Redeemer units. That's generally our battle line. It's the Liberators, Sequitors, Vindictors. We love Redeemers. And in Hallowed Knights, when a Redeemer model dies, before it dies, you roll the dice on a 4-up, and it can fight on death, which is awesome. So we build around that in Hallowed Knights anyway, which is good for this kind of a spammy list. And this list, again, is not the OP crazy version that this could be. This is a template for you to take and build out on later if you want to do this. And I'll talk about it as we get more into it. But the Shield of Civilization has a second part, is that starting from the third battle round, if any friendly Stormkeep Redeemer units contest an objective that's anywhere on the battlefield, each model counts as 3 regardless. In addition, and this is in addition to all that, if an enemy unit finishes a charge move within an inch of you, that an inch of one of your Redeemer units, and that unit is within 6 inches of an objective, you roll the dice, and on a 3-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. And let me tell you, that last bit gets forgotten all the time. The top players forget it, the new players get it, Games Workshop sometimes forgets it, because there's a lot to this Shield of Civilization rule. I've probably played a couple dozen games as Stormkeep, and I have forgotten it pretty much every time. The one time I remembered it, it was I charged, and that's not how the rule works. And I was like, dang it, you gotta charge me. Put your models back that I did mortal wounds to. and we own up to our mistakes here, because again, this is complicated stuff for how much stuff there is. Now, the thing here with being Hallowed Knights, again, is that we are really playing around this only the faithful rule, which is, again, you have to be within combat range, 3 inches of an enemy unit when your model dies. You roll a dice for it, it comes back. And we get Gardas Steel Soul, the superhero landing guy from the thumbnail that I love and adore. He gives out a 5-up ward. Once per game, he just issues an ability that says, I have a rerolling charge aura, and heroes that are Stormcast heroes get +1 attack. And it's really nice. Now, and at 150 points, he's at a very good price point for what he does, because you're really there for the ward save, and this list goes to push that a bit. So from the top, we're Hallowed Knights. Our grand strategy is Hold the Line, which is our battle line. One of our battle line at least needs to survive the battle. We're filling out on battle line anyway, and adding an extra unit and a little more. So, it's something I'm going to do anyway, so I'm taking it. My general here is the Lord Relictor. We're giving him the basic command trait that anyone could take High Priest to let him reroll his prayer rolls. He gives himself +1 to the prayer roll anyway, so this just means statistically you should never fail translocation. Now, some variants of this, there's a prayer in the Stormcast list that gives out a it was a rerolling ones to hit. It's got an 18-inch range. It's nice. But translocation's the big scary thing here. The artifact is Mirror Shield, where he can't be shot within a certain range. I believe it's either 9 or 12 inches. And on his War Scroll, he's got a prayer to heal, or a prayer to do D3 mortal wounds and make a unit -1 to hit us, which is very, very nice. And Bless Weapons is Exploding Hits. Divine Light is the prayer, 18-inch range, because that is a Lord. Reroll ones to hit that target until your next hero phase. And translocation, the thing we took is you need to be, it goes off on a 3, for him it'd be a 2 rerolling, and range of 9 inches from the character if it's a knight, or 12 if it's a Lord. Again, we have the Lord, we get the better range, and you get a teleport set up outside of 9, and you can't move in the following movement phase. And the thing is, because we're taking a lot of the foot sloggers, we need a little bit of movement somewhere. And the Mirror Shield is to make sure we don't lose our one trick. So that ends up being very... it is. You can't shoot that hero with it unless they are within 9 inches of the bear. So it's even better than the Deepkin once per game ability. So that's our general, the Lord Relictor. Okay in combat too, actually. You don't want him there, but again, it's more for the utility. And then we've got the Rune Lord here with heal. The reason I like a Rune Lord in this version of the build is there is a heroic action you can do in the hero phase to give a non-wizard an unbind. So the Rune Lord already has +2 to unbind, so having 2 of those is just going to be huge. And then the other cities hero I have here is an Anointed on Frostheart Phoenix. I gave them the Arcane Tome with the Universal Spell Flaming Weapon to just be more deadly. It has a ward save of its own, which is great. It also gives me a unbind because I gave it the Arcane Tome. But most importantly, it gives out a -1 to wound aura for all friendly units. For -1 to wound my units in melee. So this just makes that list that little bit harder to shift. Sometimes you'll see me use a Lord Castellan to just give out a bunch of +1s to save from its ability, and paired with this Frostheart Phoenix. So it's very easy to get a lot of stuff on a 2-up save, ignoring a rend, and then being -1 to be wounded, the 5-up ward from Gardas. You have a lot of options here. In the Phoenix, when a friendly wizard, such as itself, gets a spell off, gets +1 to its save. So you could cast Mystic Shield on the big block of Vindictors down here, as you can see, to be +1 to save, that it itself will get +1 to save. But before we get into the units, I have one more hero here, which is the Knight Vexillor with the Banner of Apotheosis, the brand new model. So what the Knight Vexillor does is it brings back models. Just, it's pretty... Honestly, it's the Banner of Apotheosis that brings all the people back. Just like the Anvil of Apotheosis in the lore. So what happens is once per battle in your hero phase, you can pick up to 3 friendly Stormcast units wholly within 12 inches of this model to be affected by the banner's energy. And you can pick the same unit multiple times. It is listed in the rule, literally says that in parentheses. And when you pick a unit once with this ability, you can heal up to D3 wounds allocated to it, or if no wounds are allocated to it, return a number of models slain to that unit that have a combined wounds characteristic of D3 or less. Again, if you do it twice, it's 2D3, if 3 times, 3D3. And this is just really, really cool because it's a friendly Stormcast Eternal unit thing. And again, we are just so resilient and such a pain in the butt that it doesn't matter. We don't necessarily dish out all the damage. We're just here and scoring objectives and teleporting around. You cannot stop us. You cannot remove us fast enough. That's the idea with this list. All right, and then we're going to get to our battle line. I like a block of 10 with some units of 5. Some people like as many 5 blocks of Vindictors as possible to just be these speed bumps everywhere. Because it's a 3-up save base. They've got a decent melee profile, 2 attacks each. 3s and 3, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. 6s to hit to a mortal wound and the attack sequence ends. The boss of the unit gets an extra attack, so... Those 5s are dishing out 11 attacks. The 10 is dishing out 21. It's a good profile. For good points. They're 2 wounds each. So for 130 points, I'm getting 10 wounds on a 3-up save with a 5-up ward. That's ridiculous. That is feeling almost like frickin' Phoenix Guard, honestly. Because you start off with that lower save and you have a slightly higher ward, but it's very easy to make the save a 2-up. So what I've done here is all the Vindictors, and then my third unit from cities is a unit of Shadow Warriors. When you are Stormkeep, you do not get to deep strike as Stormcast. You don't. That's the whole idea. These are the Stormcasts that have already been out in the realms. They're chilling. They're at their forts. They marched out to go and fight. So they have better rules for controlling objectives. Shadow Warriors on their War Scroll get to be put in reserve on their own rules in their own way. So what's cool there is they're a good shooting unit. They have a rule where they hit on 3s, wound on 4s, but if they are deployed from deep strike, or they're just in cover, if they are wholly within a piece of terrain that counts as cover, they get +1 to hit and wound with their bows. It doesn't matter if it's when you deep strike them or just throughout the game. So they're generally going to be hitting on 2s and 3s for their bows. They get a shot each. It's decent chip shooting to do something, and they're okay in combat. They've got like the stats of a Liberator. It's should be like 3s to hit, 4s to wound, or maybe it's 4s to hit, 3s to wound. It's one of those middling profiles, but they do just enough to earn a place in this list. And then I've got a Stormstrike Chariot because I love them. And I've got a unit of 3 Praetors. So the Stormstrike Chariot is cool because on the charge, it can do mortal wounds similar to like what the ogres in the Maw Tribes book can do for their monsters, where you roll the dice for their charge. Like, let's say I rolled an 8. Then I would roll 8 dice, and on 4 ups, they do mortal wounds as like an impact hit. And again, it's a 3-up save. It's very tanky. What I love doing is having it as a pinning piece where I charge it into something I don't want to come at me. And it has to go through a bunch of wounds on a 3-up save. I usually give the spear to be a little bit better in combat, so it's a threat that has to be dealt with. And it's just annoying enough and just cheap enough. It almost always earns back its points. And everyone's afraid of the mortal wounds, and they should be, because they hurt. And it's a big base, so they can just take up space and be fun. Now, those Praetors there, what they can do is they bond with one of my Stormcast heroes and act as their own version of a ward save, where they're each of them are 3 wounds each. And so let me read the rule out here. 3 wounds each, 3 up save. Again, we're very tanky on our saves. They're okay in combat. 3 attacks each. 3s and 3s, neg 1 ren, 2 damage, even better. And the leader of the unit adds an extra attack. So it's 10 attacks overall. The cool thing there is Soul Forged Guardians. At the start of the first battle round, before determining who has the first turn, you can pick one friendly Stormcast Eternals hero on the battlefield. That unit will be bound to them. The same hero cannot have more than one unit of these guys attached to them at any time. Before you allocate a wound or mortal wound to that hero, or instead of making a ward roll for that hero from a wound or mortal wound, it goes to this unit if they're within 3 inches of each other, and you roll the dice. On a 1 or 2, the wound is allocated to that hero as normal. On a 3 or 4, that wound hits this unit instead, and on a 5 or a 6, it is just completely negated. So, in theory, you still get the 5 up ignore, like you would with Gardas. On a 3 or 4, though, this unit gets hurt, and on a 1 or 2, the original hero gets hurt. So they could go onto Gardas to just keep him alive longer, because he should be like 6 wounds. And it's just, it gets a little dicey after a while with him, being on a 6 wounds at a 3 up save. And again, we're trying to build resiliency here. It's not the overpowering kill. And we'll go down next to our battalions. I've got a Hunters of the Heartland battalion to ignore monstrous rampages. On the big block of Vindictors and 2 of the 5s, I've got a Vanguard, which lets me auto 6 a run or reroll a charge with one of the unit of Vindictors in the Chariot. If I want to fish for a charge roll on the Chariot, that's just really nice. I've got the Heroes and the Praetors and a Warlord battalion, which gives me an extra enhancement and command point to use throughout the game. Like 1 extra to use. I like using it by throwing it in after like my general dies, because eventually that Relictor will be in the dirt because people will be upset with how good the teleportation is. And the other thing here too is I have 5 really important heroes for my army in this build. And they're all equally important and do different things. If one goes down, the other ones can still carry the load. And they're all annoying to kill. You know, the Rune Lord probably eats it first, but he has his own healing prayer to try to help him out. The Relictor can try to heal up Gardas. The Vexilor could be cheeky and try to bring back a couple of the Praetors or bring back some Vindictors. And the Phoenix is just annoying and a monster in my list, so I could unlock more battle tactics for my army to do, which is very nice. And my enhancements, again, I get an artifact for my battalion, and I do Call for Aid with this, which is when one of the units of 5 Vindictors die, I spend a command point, and then I get a new unit of 5 Vindictors wholly within 12 of one of my heroes. And that's why we have the 3 Stormcast heroes there to do this off of. It can bring a game back from the brink just to bring back a unit. This is why people don't like the unit of 10. I like it to be like melee output. Because my 3 hammers in this list are the Phoenix, the unit of 10, and the Chariot. Because I like prescribing my list building to having 3 hammers still. And at the end of the day, I'm 1970 points, so I'm also playing for the triumph that I got of +1 to wound. Because 21 attacks on the unit of Vindictors in Hunters means I could spend a command point to get them +1 to hit without a fear of them getting roared. Pop that, it's hitting on, so 21 attacks, 2s and 2s, all of a sudden that feels really consistent damage. We're fishing for 6s for mortals to hit. it just hurts, and it adds up over time. But again, if you want to do this, you could totally cut the Praetors or the Shadow Warriors and get 6 units of 5 Vindictors very easily with this kind of a list. It's how you want to play it. And the most important thing is this is a 12 drop. Why is that important, Rocco? That just, like, Professor, you're nuts. You're the nutty professor now. And I gotta say that you're not wrong, but back in the day, before everyone had access to a 1 drop, my Cities of Sigmar list was like 10 to 12 drops because I wanted to see how my opponent deployed, and I will beat them in the deployment phase. With this list, what do? You start off by going into our demonstration on how to deploy. Be right back. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, inside Tabletop Simulator to give you an idea of what the heck Rocco's trying to do here with his plan. So this is for the battle plan Veins of Gur, which is the bane of my existence. So if I can deploy good on this, you can too. This is objectives. There's 3 objectives. The first one comes battle round 2. You roll 2 dice and see where it lands. And then battle round 3, 2 more come down. So it's about board control and scoring these objectives. So the first objective will come down in the middle line, battle round 2, and then battle rounds 3, you'll get 1 here and 1 here on one of these 9 grid points, these inner grids. And random objective following is the bane of my existence, but that's why we have a fast-moving Phoenix, that's why we have the teleport here, and why we have the reroll prayer trait. And let me talk to you about how I want to do this with my 12 drops. My first drop will always be Shadow Warriors in reserve. And my opponent will then, who's probably a 1 or a 2 drop, will have to drop half to all their army. And then I just counter deploy them. Oh, cool, they went all hard on this side, so I'm going to come over here. Oh, cool, they went really spread out. I'm going to bunch up in the middle to then split their army. You know, it gives me options. And with this, I did a very simple deployment because, again, we don't know where the objectives are, so I know something's going to come down in the middle, and I know it's going to be, again, if we're going to look at this from above, we're looking probably around here, here, or here for the first objective, and then here, here, or here, and here, here, and here. Those are the 9 spots. So actually we're gonna, so probably be something like that, again, we're just approximating really quick. I'm not actually measuring this out. But we have the technology. And again, it's gonna be, the other 2 are gonna be on the houses, which is gonna be a little rough, but we're fighting over them, and that's okay. So we know these are where the objectives are. Again, we've got them on the houses. So I'm just trying to shade 2/3 of the table. I know I can teleport a Stormcast unit later if I want to. I know this Chariot's actually really tanky. So it can go out here on its 12 wounds on a 3-up save. I think I said 10 earlier, so this is even better than I remembered. I use mine a lot, too. I've been shorting myself. And, you know, we play for 2/3 of the table. We're not trying to overextend with this. And again, if they're a 1 drop, we've null deployed them. They have no idea what our game plan is. So we can do whatever we want because these Shadow Warriors are here. And they have to respect that we could deep strike on them. And for these middle objectives, if it falls there, you know, in my turn, I'm just deploying the Shadow Warriors wholly within cover, you know, turn 2. On this terrain feature that's probably going to, like, explode. Yeah, cool. Model collision. You know, they're going to be... Ooh, hotkeys, Rocco. Lock them in place. They're going to be deployed on the terrain. Great, now they're wholly on here. They got +1 to hit and wound on their bows, and they're just going to rain hell down on my opponent. And for my actual deployment, again, we're just going standard. I've got the block of 10 here, the 5 here to be a front line. I got 5 on each flank. Everybody is within range of Gardas' 5-up ward. The Phoenix has its own ward to save. The Praetors are right here within 3. If someone tries to alpha strike me, what do? I heal. That's it. I've got healing here. I've got healing on my dwarf. And the dwarf, if should always be the last drop, because this guy is going to be your insurance that you go first, because he'll have 2 unbinds on your opponent's turn to mess up at +2 to unbind to mess up any spells. And again, he's on a 25mm base. He can go in front of my guys and still be within my territory by a hair and just respond to any wizard we need him to. And this idea, again, I'm assuming my opponent went more in the middle, skewing that way. If they got a wizard up front, we got range. If we got to come up close, we can come up close. And again, from here, I've got 30 inches of unbind. And I am covering a very large swath of this deployment zone right now. And I can be reactive here. That's how I beat them in deployment. If they have a wizard that needs to get off a spell, their teleport is a spell, not a prayer like mine. So I can stop it. My Rune Lord, who I've named mine Ugni. And, maybe that's our word of the week. Ugni. 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 Will be there to stop them and stop their magical machinations. And again, I got units in teleporting range. I've got ways to mess with my opponent. And I don't care that they're going to tell me who goes first. Because if I go first, guess what? I'm not moving far. If anything, I might spread out to deny them maybe a teleport or a deep strike. If they're like really big on that. I could teleport a unit of 5 Vindictors in front of a Maw Crusher and be like, okay, cool. Kill him. Because you know what's going to happen? I'm going to use my call for aid to bring them back immediately. Because that's the cool thing about this, right? Like Iron Jaws, real big Alpha Strike thing. They have Mighty Destroyers where if you are within 12 inches of them, they have to try to charge you. If not, they get to move. And if you want to really mess up their whole Alpha Strike move in the hero phase, then move in the movement phase to kill you in your deployment zone and pin them in, almost as if they were playing Stormcast Dragons themselves. That's the counterplay here is if you go first, is you just send them up there to block a Mighty Destroyers, and they waste a turn with 2,000 points of their army having to kill a 130-point unit of yours. Some people also like doing that by bringing a unit of Liberators to be even more cheap to throw away. Then when it's your turn again, you spend the command point and you just bring back a unit of Vindictors like they never even died. And here they are, back again. And that's the cool counterplay of this, and why you need the reroll prayer trait on the Relictor is to just keep that steady. And then it's just a lot of how long can you live? Again, the Phoenix is good in melee, the Block of 10 is good in melee, and the Chariot's good in melee. If you're charging all 3 units into combat there, I would enjoy the mortal wounds on the Chariot. It's probably going to mess something up, and I would go first with the Vindictors because they're just pure damage, and then the bird's always -1 to be wounded anyway because the aura's off of the bird. And hopefully it casts Mystic Shield at some point, and if not, it'll try to all-out defense itself. And you force them to have to choose, do I attack the Chariot with a unit that took a bunch of mortal wounds, and I'm afraid of losing it to be finished off by the Chariot? Or did I go for the bird that's debuffing me anyway because it's near the Vindictors and I need it gone? With this list, you can force a lot of hard decisions on your opponent. And if you're keeping the Gardas up with the Vindictors, they're a 5-up ward save at -1 to be wounded on probably a 2-up. There are no good choices in trying to kill this army. It's not flashy, but what it makes up for that in prayers and abilities to heal yourself, to debuff your opponent, and to just frustrate them. And there are no right answers in how do you beat this list besides you have to kill it. Because it's going to stand on objectives, and we're going to have all these Vindictors. There's 25 in this build that are going to count as 75 models on objectives later in the game. And that's just what it does. You know? You're talking Mega Gargant levels of capping objectives on your opponent. You're talking about you have a deep strike threat here in Shadow Warriors. It almost feels like you're getting the best of Stormcast with the normal deep striking because of that. You get a little bit of shooting. It's not much to write home about, but it could pop a hero. You know, if they got lookouts or, oh, that's great. We're neg 1 to hit. We're back to 3s. We'll all out attack. Buddy, we're back to 2s. And you could pop a 5 wound hero. I've had multiple rounds of shooting from Shadow Warriors kill a Go Track. And you know, I've had Garda's Steel Soul get charged by Severith the Wind Spirit. This happened in a game I was helping someone learn Lumineth, and it came down to Sev had to make a charge into Gardas, and I overwatched with him, you know, unleashed hell with the cloak. I got 6 shots. 4 of them went through for damage, and he was already kind of wounded. And then I fought. He fought, killed me, and then I fought again on death and killed him. And it was just a glorious melee. And that's what this army gives you. It gives you chances, because that's the other fun part of this. Say you stopped and blocked that double movement from the Iron Jaws earlier because you teleported with your your 4 or 5 head brain play of teleporting Vindictors up. They died. On a 4-up, you roll to see those models fight on death, and they fight, and then they explode on the way out for some mortal wounds. And these guys have the that's just a Stormcast thing they get, is when these models die, you roll dice equal to their wounds characteristic, and on a 6-up, you get a mortal wound. And if they are in the fancy new armor, which the Vindictors, the Praetors, actually everybody but the Relictor and I believe Gardas is in the fancy new armor for these Stormcast units. And I will check for Gardas. No, he doesn't get the fancy new armor. But everybody else does. So they get an extra dice to roll. So it's the Vindictors count as 3. You get 13 dice for the Chariot. And eventually, if enough of them die, you will roll some mortal wounds at the right time. And it'll just be funny. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, no, that's my love of Stormkeep. And I want you all to like and subscribe. You know, share the channel around. We're getting close to 800 subs. We're shooting for that 1,000. If you have more questions, leave a comment. If you don't have any questions, say good video. I love to hear that you like the stuff. If you've got suggestions for videos, leave that as well. And as I like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye.